and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cassandra Shields. I am the owner of Shield Scholars, which is a remote tutoring company for kids about 3 to 10 years old right now in all subjects, but specifically reading and learning how to read.
Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs.
How do we teach kids, especially beginner readers, vocabulary? Now, when I'm talking about beginner readers, you guys know I'm generally talking about kids about 3 to 6 years old. That's the age group that I really work with when I am teaching kids to learn how to read. So for this age group, do we implement word walls and vocabulary lists? Personally, I say no. They're way too little for this kind of formal learning of sit down, do your flashcards, do the book work and stuff like that. So you guys will hear me say it over and over and over again in every video and email that I write. When we're working with kids under 8 years old, we need to keep our teaching very concrete. This means we do not want to teach using lots of language for them or over-explaining or teaching conceptually. Kids under 8 years old are solely able to learn concretely, which means the best way for us to teach them is through things that they actually have experience with in their very real little worlds. Some examples are to use pictures, feelings, emotions, memories, etc. in order to relate the concept back to something that they actually have experience with, if that makes sense. For example, when I'm talking to new parents, I always use an apple tree as my example. So it sounds kind of funny, but stick with me here. You cannot just pull an apple out of thin air, right? That doesn't exist. That's silly. That's crazy. Say that to a little kid and they'll be like, what? You can't do that. So think about it. The apple is attached to a branch, which attaches to a trunk, which has a root system. Now, without that root system in place first, the growth of the trunk and the development of the branches, you would never have the fruit as the product. Does that make sense? So it's kind of the same thing with kids as you're trying to teach them as they're growing and developing. Just trying to pull information out of thin air and making them remember it isn't going to be long-term or successful learning. This would be basic flashcard skills or memorization tactics, which is not going to help them actually learn in the long run. Eventually, yes, kids, they will memorize a lot of things, you know, they're going to end up memorizing spelling and spelling words and answers. But if our first step in working with them is teaching memorization, learning is going to be a lot harder for them in the long run. This video is going to explain the best ways that I teach new vocabulary and big words to kids who are brand new to learning to read at just 3, 4, 5, or 6 years old. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to go over 3 major concepts on teaching vocabulary in early literacy. They're read aloud, conversation, and play-based learning. The rule of thumb in school is, in general, kids should be learning about 10 to 12 new vocabulary words per week within a school year, which is a lot. That's anywhere from 2 to 3 brand new words a day if we're talking about a 5-day week, right? So kind of a lot to remember, and that seems kind of overwhelming even to us as adults. There are 5 main steps to introducing new words to kids. Number 1 is say it, write it, and read it. 2, give a child-friendly definition. So this is not a dictionary definition. That's going to make absolutely no sense to them. Number 3 is use the word in context numerous times and share particularly what the word is not. Number 4, ask kids yes or no questions to identify the meaning of the word. And then finally, number 5, have kids use the word on their own. Pro tip here, as a mom and a teacher, is do it wrong. Does that make sense? Like, you do it wrong. You give the wrong definition. You use it incorrectly. When we're wrong in front of kids, I don't know what it is. They love it. They love it when they can prove adults wrong, when they know more than you. So sometimes the best way to get them to retain something is to have you mess it up. It doesn't matter if you mess it up on purpose, an accident, whatever. Your child is going to call you on it, and they're going to be so proud, and they're going to be so happy that you are incorrect. Sometimes the best way to learn something, even for adults, is when you have to turn around and teach it. Now, I will say here that the best way to teach kids vocabulary when it comes to early literacy and talking about kids, let's say pre-K through 1st or even 2nd grade, is going to be through books and reading to them. So let's jump into our first concept of teaching vocabulary to littles, reading aloud. As a parent, I'm sure you've heard it millions of times over and over and over again from the point that you became parents, from the point you were pregnant, had your baby, even before it was really kind of relevant to be talking about academics. Read to your child. At baby showers, you get tons of books, right? Both for you, for your child, what you should do, storybooks, and then everything, you know, along those lines like that. And I'll say that when I was pregnant with my first baby in 2017, in lieu of cards, we asked everyone to bring a children's book, you know, new, used, hand-me-down, whatever, so I could start building a little mini library of storybooks. And let's be honest, Hallmark cards are like $6, right? And they have some little dumb quote in it. And they're going to get thrown away. No one's going to save those cards, right? So I would much rather have had a 99-cent children's book from Goodwill. And, you know, this wasn't my idea. I can't take credit for this. I found it on Pinterest or something when we were planning the party. But there is a reason why everyone says read to your children. And if you guys follow me, if you followed me for a while, watched any of my videos, you know that I love academic articles. That is what I do in my free time, is I'm on Google Scholar or on my alumni website, and I'm using their database for actual, proper, peer-reviewed scientific articles. I don't know, that's just, I'm boring. Okay, that's what I do for fun. So I've cited academic articles to support everything I say in these videos that I make. And yes, it's supported in research that reading to your children helps them learn vocabulary, it helps them learn to talk as babies. According to one of the studies I have linked down below, according to Dufferin, Plunkett, and Nation 2015, significant longitudinal relationships between pre-literacy vocabulary knowledge and subsequent reading support the theory that vocabulary is a cognitive function of both reading accuracy and reading comprehension. Okay, so now, when I say this, I want to be really, really clear here that reading to your child does not teach them how to read. Reading aloud does not teach the very specific concepts of reading foundations to children, which is where a lot of parents that I meet with get confused, and they automatically jump deep into the something's wrong with my child rabbit hole when their child actually starts school, and lo and behold, they might be behind in reading level. So usually when they meet with me, they say things like, I've read to them every single night, and to the point where they have all of these books memorized word for word, but they still can't read. And now their first grade teacher said that they're about a year behind grade level, so now I'm pretty sure they're dyslexic. Maybe they are, right? Maybe they are dyslexic. I cannot diagnose your child with anything. I can do a reading assessment to see if they're on level, and I can tell you where they're missing certain skills and stuff, but I can't diagnose your child with anything. So if you really, really are concerned about dyslexia, I would advise you to get a proper assessment done with them and, you know, receive a proper diagnosis. But when it comes to dyslexia, we know that about 1 in 10 people are affected. So not the majority, you know, about 10%. So I would say, just off the top of my head, about 90% of parents who work with me are worried about dyslexia when we initially meet, and then a lot of those symptoms go away after kids learn proper phonics skills. I will say a more likely reason for kids being unable to read or struggling to read is simply not being taught properly in a way that is developmentally appropriate for them, and probably not because they have a learning disability. I know, I always get a lot of people, social media and stuff, really, really worked up when I say that kids might not have a disability. But that's the reality of it. Most kids don't have a disability, and we actually have research to support that 95% of kids can and are able to learn to read by the end of first grade. It just matters how you teach it. I will say that the research we have of reading to our kiddos as babies and toddlers very simply indicates that when they do start learning to read, it'll be a lot easier for them. Reading to them increases their abilities for reading accuracy and reading comprehension. It does not teach them the ins and outs of phonological or phonemic awareness, okay? So in this video today, we are solely talking about vocabulary, not the breakdown of phonics skills that need to be usually explicitly taught to kids. Vocabulary development and phonics are not the same thing at all. If you missed episode 1, that is linked in the iCards somewhere up here, down here, I don't know, it's linked somewhere, which went over the breakdown of phonological and phonemic awareness. Go ahead and watch that video when you're done here. That is more phonics based. This brings me to our second concept of vocabulary building, which is conversations. When you talk openly with your children, they're going to use the words that you also use. Our most basic example of this, and I'm sure every parent can relate to some level, is when your 1-year-old uses the F word over and over again. And I'll be honest, the first time that each of my kids said a curse word when they were usually around 18 to 20 months, I don't know if that's too early for a kid to know those words, but they used it in a full sentence and used it in proper context. So while at the time I was like, impressive sentence formation, we're going to come back around to the parenting here, but I was proud of their English, okay? So we know it's not hard to teach vocabulary through conversation with your kids, and all of their vocabulary as toddlers is going to be learned naturally through what we call language acquisition learning. Essentially, they learn how to speak in the language spoken to them on a base level, if that makes sense. They copy their environment, and this is where we get bilingual toddlers, and this is also where we get accents, right? We don't teach kids to talk in a particular accent, and we definitely don't teach our 16-month-olds to sit down with a paper and flashcards and worksheets and teach them how to talk. They just do it. They just copy what you do. The biggest issue with this concept when I bring it up to parents is the parents don't think that they know enough vocabulary to really teach their kiddo something grand, you know, and you don't have to teach them something grand, and they don't have to know these words that half of adults don't use. Just talk to them. Explain what you're doing, repeat what they say, try to have them repeat words that you also use. Like, let's say, I don't know, they show you a toy and say something in baby talk. Always respond to them in a full sentence. Yeah, baby, look at your car. That's a red car, and it goes really fast, right? Can you say red car? Red car. Now, obviously, this is like an example for like maybe a 1 or 2-year-old. So how do we teach kids who are maybe a bit older additional vocabulary through conversation? I mean, quite frankly, and straight to the point, you teach it to them. For example, my 6-year-old is complaining to me that she's so hungry, right? She's so hungry and she needs a snack, and she needs a snack so bad. And usually this is like while I'm making dinner or lunch or something like that. So I'll ask her, yeah, you're so hungry, you're famished. And 9 out of 10 times, she's going to grasp onto that big word, famished. And she's going to use it over and over and over again every time she needs a snack, because I think she thinks it makes her argument more serious. I'm going to take her more seriously when she uses these big words. She's not just hungry, she's more than hungry. Or when my kids are fighting and we're doing like our feelings breakdown, you know, our gentle parenting or authoritative parenting, that conversation is going to go something like this. You know, I'll be like, tell Shiloh how you felt when she pushed you. And Lennox will say, she made me feel sad. And I'll say, yeah, getting pushed down can make you feel dismal and even humiliated, huh? And she'll say, yeah, Shiloh, you made me feel humiliated. And then I'll move on to, you know, the antagonist or whatever. And we'll talk about her feelings. Lennox, you made me mad when you said you wouldn't play Barbies with me. And then I'll come in, yeah, did that make you furious when Sissy ignored you? Yeah, I'm so furious. So they don't have to be these big, grand words. Just make them level 2 compared to level 1. It isn't hard to get them to use broader vocabulary. You just kind of need to step in and get it started for them. And then extending from that, you know your kiddo. So let's say you don't know a lot of big words. That's my parents' biggest complaint is, well, I don't know enough vocabulary. Yes, you do. You know what your child is interested in and what they like to talk about, right? So even if you don't have a grand vocabulary yourself, or maybe English is like your second language, Google synonyms for common words that they use a lot and start throwing those into the conversation. My final point here in vocabulary development for littles is play-based learning. Kids learn through play. It is the easiest way for them to digest real concepts, because to them, playing is a very real scenario, right? Playing pretend. This is kind of a branch off of the concept that we were just talking about, but we're gonna apply these words within maybe games and actually interacting with things. My 6 and 4-year-old are super into Minecraft and Roblox, and honestly, they won't shut up about it, literally ever. So instead of them telling me, Mommy, I built a new house in Minecraft, I'll reply with, oh, you created a new structure? Like, what kind of structure is it? Did you make a mansion, or is it an apartment? Did you make a restaurant? Little things like that, and then they start using words like structure, foundation. If I ask what area they built it on, like, I don't know, mansion, complex, whatever, then when we work on structured reading, now we're actually doing their proper reading lesson. We're doing our homeschool where we are doing bookwork and stuff. We are reading books. They're able to recognize these words the first time that they see it because they've both heard it, they've used it before, and it's actually something that they recognize. So if we're doing a book and my daughter sees the word foundation, when she's sounding it out, it's not going to be this foreign word that seems like it's from a different language. She's going to eventually get it, and she already knows what foundation means. So does teaching them vocabulary teach them how to read? No, it doesn't, but it makes it so much easier when we do move into the phonics breakdowns of multisyllabic words, moving into long vowel sounds, vowel teams, open syllables, prefixes, suffixes, recognizing ending sounds, for example, like the T-I-O-N at the end of a word says shun instead of T-on. Things like that. We do this a lot as well with playing pretend. Like, I'll have them use bigger words for when playing shopkeeper. We do that one a lot. And we use words like purchase instead of buy, total instead of how much. And while playing pretend, we'll have adult conversations, about the weather between the shopper and the cashier, or what their plans are later, things that they often see me or their dad saying, when we're out in public. Now, I know that watching this video and from the examples I gave kind of smushed all together, it might look or come off as, dang, this lady plays with her kids a lot. I don't play with my kids enough for this to be realistic, and I don't want to play with them more. Right, as moms, we're usually so overwhelmed with our to-do list and sitting down and playing with our kids or talking to them for hours makes you literally want to bash your head into the wall. It creates this type of anxiety where it's like, I can't do it. So no, honestly, I don't play with them that much. Do I play with them? I do. I'm a very busy lady though, so these are simple conversations that I can have with them while I'm cooking dinner, or I'm cleaning up, or I'm doing other things that I need to do. I'm a work from home, homeschooling, stay-at-home mom. So no, I don't have the time to spend hours every day engaging with them. And I definitely don't pre-plan like pretend play, but these are just examples you can do at literally any point in the day with your child. And it doesn't have to be this big formal thing that you created a lesson around and you added it to your color coordinating binder. Simply engage with them while riding in the car, eating dinner, have a 3-minute conversation about their storybook before they actually fall asleep. Just be mindful of doing it, and the more you do, the more natural it's going to become for you to kind of throw these words out into basic conversation. So that's it for episode 2, vocabulary development in my 10-part series, Literacy for Littles. Just to recap, we went over 3 main concepts today on helping your child prepare for early literacy and early reading by helping them develop their vocabulary. Number 1, read aloud. Read books to your children every day or most days and talk about those stories. What's going to happen? Who's this guy? Why did they do that? Number 2 is conversation. Talk to your kids, right? Just have an A-B conversation about what they did today, a dream that they had, how they felt about a certain thing, their toys, their games, and then add mildly bigger words from what they used when they were telling you about it. If they said sad, replace it with you felt despondent. If they said happy, replace it with you felt jovial. It doesn't have to be this big grand thing. And then finally, number 3 was play-based learning. Play with your kids, even just for 15 minutes. When playing princesses or something, you can use words like, you look exquisite, baby. Or if playing Legos, building this airplane was grueling work. It was really hard. If you have any tried and true methods of teaching your kids vocabulary, put it in the comment section below. And if you have any questions, other parents probably have those same questions as well. So go ahead and ask away. And if there's enough questions, I'll just make a whole video just answering it. If you are interested in your child learning to read and you want to work with me as their tutor, I have several results-based courses for kids. A results-based course, this basically means that you enroll for your child to attain a very specific reading level, or they stay in that program with me for free. So you enroll for them to get to a first grade level, you enroll for them to get to a second grade level, and they stay with me until they accomplish that. This is a one-time payment. Obviously, we can break it into payment plans and things like that, but it's not being charged per hour, especially for the younger guys. It is a full program, so you enroll for results. You don't enroll for, you know, a lack of a timeline or continue to pay for these lessons and never actually see any results from it. Like I said earlier, I've made a free class for parents on beginner readers on why it's beneficial to get started early. So use the link below to watch that for free now if you haven't already. And then as always, let me know if you have any questions, and please subscribe and like this video. When you engage positively on YouTube with a video or a content creator, it shows YouTube that the content was helpful, and it will suggest it to other parents maybe perusing around YouTube as well. Next week is episode 3 of Literacy for Littles, and we're gonna go over print awareness. So be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all next week.